I love you. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We have some nice weather here today in Northern Virginia, so I'm going to go ahead and take advantage and do the next scheduled tire rotation for my Tacoma. I will be going over a few different ways to rotate your tires. If you have a 4x4 like I do, it's pretty simple. All you're going to have to do, you're going to take the front tires and crisscross them with the back. So the front driver will then go to the rear passenger, and the front passenger will go to the rear driver's side. If you have a pre-runner or a regular 4x2 Tacoma, all you're going to do, you're going to bring the rear tires straight to the front, so no crisscrossing, and then go ahead and crisscross the front tires to the back. So rear to the front, front driver to rear passenger, and front passenger to rear driver. It is super important to rotate your tires on a regular basis. I think most places and most tire companies recommend every 5,000 miles, so you can usually just do this whenever you get your oil change, if you get those things lined up. Mine are a little staggered, so I'm just doing this by themselves today. So why is it important to rotate your tires? Well, first of all, if you have aftermarket tires like the mud trains like I have, they certainly aren't cheap, so you want them to last as long as possible, because these certainly don't get the best tread wear anyway. So with the weight of the engine over the front axle, the front tires, also since you're using those to turn, they are going to wear down a lot faster than the rear tires, so you got to go ahead and rotate those out to keep the wear as even as possible, because on four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive systems, if the tread on the tires doesn't match up, it's going to put a lot of extra strain on the system. And of course, that can cause you a lot of damage and strain and headache down the road. And we all want to avoid that. This is another one of those opportunities where you can do this basic maintenance yourself and save yourself a lot of money if you have a few basic tools. I will be using a floor jack and 4 jack stands and just do all my tires at once. If you don't have those, you can certainly do it one tire at a time by using your spare. So in that case, you would go ahead and say jack up if you're going to start here in the front passenger. You would jack up this tire, remove this, put the spare on, and then if you're a four-wheel drive, go ahead and take this and put it in the rear passenger, and so on and so forth. Obviously, that's going to take a lot longer, so I'm just going to go ahead and jack the whole truck up, put it on jack stands, and do the swap all at once. To get things started, you do want to be on as level ground as possible. I have a slight, just a few degrees slope on the parking for my townhouse, so what I'm going to do to combat that is raise the front of the truck, just say 1 inch higher than the back for the jack stand, so it'll be sitting level. Go ahead and have your emergency brake on, and then go ahead and take your tire iron, or I'm just using my impact bit and my breaker bar, and you're going to go ahead and want to loosen all the lug nuts on all 4 tires. Because when this is up on jack stands, you definitely don't want to be cranking down on this thing and say tip the truck off the jack stand. So go ahead and loosen all these up. They don't have to be hand loose, just loose enough so once the truck is in the air and you're taking the tire off, you can just use this with barely any pressure to go ahead and get all those lug nuts off. I will be jacking up the front end of the truck first, so I'm going to go ahead and take my custom wheel chocks right here and set these in front of the rear tires. You can use bricks, you can use a couple 2x4s nailed together, you name it, or you could go ahead and buy, professional grade wheel chocks. But I found that bricks work perfectly, and they're like $1 over at Home Depot. Okay, so before I start jacking with my floor jack, I did check one more time just to make sure my emergency brake is on. I will be jacking the front of my vehicle directly from the underside of my skid plate. It is flat, perfectly good spot to jack the truck. If you don't have a front skid plate on there, there is sort of a nice nub you can use to jack right in the middle there. And for your jack stands, for the front, I've got them in position on either side. I'm going to be putting them right in front of this cross member right about here. And as you can see, I'll be using a 4x4 block just to make this a lot easier, since with my extended travel suspension, it does take quite a bit to get those front tires off the ground. You can see right here, I've got both tires. There's about 1 inch, 1.5 inches I like to leave it as close to the ground as possible. I think it makes it a little easier to get those tires back on. I'll show you why a little later. Go ahead and lift the rear of the truck directly from the bottom of the differential or the pumpkin, and then I'll put the jack stands about the middle part of the axle. And you can see I've got a cloth right there on the jack stand. I just think it helps protect the bottom of the differential over there from scratches when you're using this method, so definitely recommend trying that. And there it is, got the whole truck on jack stands right now. So all I'm gonna do, like I said, use that crisscross pattern, front right to back left, front left to back right. And I will go ahead and show you a way I found that's easiest to get these heavy tires back on with the last tire. And since everything's off, exposing your brakes, you might as well go ahead and take your brake cleaner and go ahead and hit everything while it's easy to access. Okay, there's 1,000 different ways to put heavy tires back on. The way I found that works best for me, you sit right in front of it, get the tire as close as you can to the hub, and you sort of bear hug it from the bottom. And again, I only lifted my truck a couple inches in the air, so I don't have to lift it that far, because these are probably about 100 pounds each. So I'm going to bear hug it from the bottom, sort of lift up and line up one or two of the top bolts up here, and then sort of twist everything into place. And sometimes you may even, if it starts to get off balance, you can even use your head to balance the top of the tires. Here's what it looks like. Okay, all four tires are on, and we're pretty much just going to do the exact opposite to get this all put back on the ground safely. So I did hand tighten all these bolts on all four. So I'm going to go ahead and jack up the rear, remove those jack stands, and then do the same thing in the front and get this truck back on the ground. I did forget to mention this before I lowered the back of the truck, but while the truck and the tires are still in the air, go ahead and make sure there's no play from side to side. If there is, go ahead and redo all the lug nuts. When the truck is on the ground, again, you did hand tighten these up in the air, but now that it's on the ground, it's time to tighten them up all the way, torque them down to spec. Go ahead and do this in a star pattern. So if you're starting here on the top, tighten that one down, then skip this one and tighten this one over here, and then this one over here, etc. And then you jump here, here, and here. And as you tighten up these, you might be able to tighten the ones you hit before just a little more. So go ahead and don't forget to check all of them until you get them where they need to be. All right, everybody, if you've made it this far, you have successfully rotated your own tires. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back for doing a job well done, doing it safely, and saving yourself a lot of money. Probably cost you about $100 to get this done at the dealer or one of those tire and lube stores. This is one of those maintenance things that is easy, but there are a lot of crucial steps for your own safety and the safety of your vehicle, obviously. So if you feel uncomfortable doing this, this is one I might recommend you skip, just because of the potential to damage your vehicle or even kill yourself. So just be careful, take your time, make sure you're doing all the steps correctly. If you're just stopping by, go ahead and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you in the next video.